Many times when we come to faith, we are reading in a bubble, as we a lot of times read the Bible in isolation without having a wider world view of what's going on and how the biblical world connects to the wider world. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 resources that will help you expand your biblical world view. Let's jump into it. The first book we have here is The Pentateuch and Haftorahs by Dr. J.H. Hertz. Now, this one is out of print, but I will leave links down below, as well as you can Google this. This is from the Soncino Press, and this has been a jewel and a diamond for me, because this, especially when you're studying the Old Testament, it comes from the culture and the people of the Old Testament, so you get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to say, instead of going through study Bibles who have studied the original sources or have studied the culture. You get input about God from the original people, so you can have a solid foundational understanding. And this gives input from different Jewish scribes, different rabbis, different sages, as well as it will give inputs here and there from Christian sources, later Christian sources. So this is something that I go to pretty often when I'm trying to understand the Old Testament, especially the Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible, or what we call the Torah or the law proper. And so this has been a jewel. This is one of my favorite study sources. The next one is the Jewish New Testament commentary. Now with this particular one is also out of print. I will leave some links down below. Some will be affiliate links as well, but you can get your hands on a copy, depending on where you look, you can find them affordable, or some people charge some pretty high prices. But what I like about this is that in here you can get also a Jewish perspective, even though this comes from a more Trinitarian perspective. But you can look and you can see what the beliefs, what the perspectives were in first century Israel, Judea, Judah, in that time, in the time that Jesus himself lived, what the beliefs, how they were developed leading up to the time of Jesus Christ. This is also one of my favorites when wanting to understand the culture of the first century specifically, and how Jews, how the disciples, how Jesus would have been taught, and how he would have contrasted what he was taught with what the Spirit of God directly taught him. Now, this next book is the Iliad. This is not Bible-centered per se, but I have found this book to be invaluable. This is what would have been one of the Greek Bibles of the time, or part of their religious writings. And that is because in the Iliad, you get to see how their gods interacted with them in everyday circumstances and specific circumstances, how the gods would respond, the Greek gods, the Roman gods. And I find this very helpful in understanding spirituality overall, how the gods of other nations interacted with them. And it helps me to understand, when we read certain things about God in the Bible, where such expressions came from or why they were expressed that way. And it's because of their interactions. It's because of how the gods interacted with those who were devoted to them. And so you get to see people and gods such as Zeus, Aphrodite, Hera. You get to see Achilles. You get to see and this is where the movie Troy comes from, the sacking of the city of Troy. And so this is a great book in expanding your understanding about the gods of the rest of the world in contrast to our God. This 4th book is written by Josephus. Now, he is a Jewish/Roman historian, and he writes about events that particularly were written about first century Israel and what the beliefs were yet again. And it's so helpful because you get all these different perspectives, so you can get a wider picture of what was going on in those times. And as they say about any incident, any circumstance, there are 2 sides to a story, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle. So having these different sources are going to help you have a balanced perspective, especially when you connect that with prayerfulness, talking to God, allowing him to help you to have the right perspective, his perspective, which is always the right perspective. But Josephus, he writes about how Israel was sacked by Rome, how it was decimated by the Roman Empire, what led up to it, the beliefs. There are even some places in there that refer to Jesus Christ and some of the work he did, or people that believed in him and the works that they said that he did. And so I find this as a very helpful resource in trying to understand the world of the Bible and trying to understand the world of the New Testament, and yet again the beliefs of the people of Israel and of more of the world at large as well, and how Rome interacted with the Jewish people first century. And then last but not least is The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah. This is written by Alfred Edersheim, and this I find helpful because this talks about more of the customs at times, more of the in-house things going on. One thing that comes to mind is the perspective of what we might say Hebraic Jews, Jews that lived in the land of Israel, spoke Aramaic, spoke Hebrew, versus the Jews that lived outside of the land of Israel after they were kicked out the land, exiled out of the land by God for their wickedness and their rebellion against him, which you can read in the Bible, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, 1st, 2nd Kings. And you can see those things happening, as well as the book of Daniel, as well as the books of Ezekiel, Jeremiah. And you can see how the Jews that stayed outside of the land of Israel after God allowed their return, how they developed their communities, how they stood in contrast even within the same ethnic group, even within the same belief system. You can see what the perspectives were. I think Mr. Edersheim, I think he did a great work with this and giving perspectives. I have used it for study, for teaching, for preaching, things like that. You can find links for this down below as well. Now, if there's any other types of resources that you would like, you can let me know down in the comments below. But these are 5 resources that will help you in expanding your perspective. Now, if you're new to Christianity or you're trying to reconfigure your faith or reconstruct your faith, you can check out my playlist of basic Bible studies right here. And you can find other videos that you might find helpful, perhaps about the end times. But until the next video, may you allow the Lord to lead you and to guide you, to shape you and to mold you, and to help you to be all he created you to be. God bless you. In Jesus' name.